Hey guys, what's down? And yes, there is something different about me. That's right. Got a new haircut. Lampshading aside, I was rewatching my video on Legos and noticed a few things on the section about Lego battles. One, I got several aspects of the game completely wrong. Yeah, I know.
I can't believe you've done this.
I'll probably redo a video on that game some other time, but not the actual Lego part. There's so many times you can ramble on about plastic bricks before your sanity fades away. Oh no. I think it's too late! And secondly, I realized many obscure DS games exist that I would feel would make decent videos. So today, I present you an underrated gem. Shrek for the D... I'm just kidding. Soon I will talk about this great game. Soon. We're actually going to talk about Nicktoons Attack of the Toybots. Nicktoons Attack of the Toybots is one of the 3 versions of the 3rd entry in the Nicktoons crossover. This series started off with Nicktoons Unite, which wasn't very nice. It was a beat 'em up, and I hate to say it, but I'm not a fan of beat 'em ups. Look, I like a good fighting game. I also like a good beat 'em up. But there lies the issue. A good beat 'em up, which mostly aren't the case. Majority beat 'em ups are still designed to be arcade games, which means
we need money.
They're designed to ensure you don't win, and you become broke. The only strategy to like 90% of these beat 'em ups is to mash the buttons. Don't worry, I'm sure if you're pressing the buttons rapidly, you'll be able to knock out a whole crowd of enemies. It's not that matters, they got like 20 more enemies afterwards. Unite also lacks any real music, so it can convey to you how the game wants you to feel. Depressed. Nicktoons Battle for Bikini Island is pretty good. Actually, arguably the best installment. Oh wait, you can't play as Jimmy Neutron. I changed my mind, this game sucks! And we reached Nicktoons Attack of the Toybots. This whole time I was talking about the main console versions. And Nicktoons Attack of the Toybots console version blows! Words cannot describe how terribly put together the console version is. Well, words can describe, but it's going to take a lot more than a couple words. A lot more. There's also the GBA version, which certainly exists, alright. But in this video, I'm going to solely talk about the DS version, because it is arguably the best in my opinion. Now what genre this game is a part of is a bit complicated. The game has an identity crisis, but a majority of the game is a beat 'em up, which, yeah, I know I was just bashing Nicktoons Unite for being a beat 'em up, but here's the thing. That game was simply not a good beat 'em up. This game's beat 'em up gameplay is much more well designed and fun overall. The game brings all your favorite Nicktoons characters together. Oh my god, it's Tak! Yeah, you know, Tak! You can't have a Nicktoons game without Tak. Now since I want to be serious about my opinion on this random licensed DS game, I'm gonna make a tier list ranking all the characters in this game.
Oh boy.
So we'll start with the main man himself, SpongeBob. I don't know why, but I recall playing as SpongeBob a ton in this game. It's probably because 7-year-old me was like, oh, SpongeBob. I like SpongeBob. However, SpongeBob kinda sucks in this game. Or I guess, absorbs. But he's not very good. 2 types of characters are present in this game. You got the close-up melee characters, and the ranged characters. Now usually the ranged characters reign supreme, but SpongeBob happens to be a ranged character, which is strange because you think they'd make the star of the game a close-up character for the sake of simplicity, especially when they force you to play as him for the first world. But no, they made him ranged. The main issue with SpongeBob is that the bubbles he shoots are pretty slow and aren't all that strong. Why the heck aren't these bubbles doing as much damage as a bullet? Each character in the game has 4 attack options. You got the 3-hit combo, an air attack, charge attack, and essentially a finishing move when any enemies have the dizzy effect. There's also a 5th attack, but it's just a scream wipe that occurs when you fill up your meter. What did he say? Yeah, I still don't know what he said. Combo makes him move forward at the end, which might not seem like it would affect anything, but trust me, it can mess you up in many ways. Yeah, SpongeBob is going in the D tier. Next we got Danny Phantom, who, weirdly enough, feels much more like an all-rounder character than SpongeBob. He's a close-up character, and he's a pretty efficient one at that. His 3-hit combo does really good damage, and his charge attack is a great way to apply the dizzy effect on your enemies. When your enemies are dizzy, you can do your finishing move, which grants lots of health. He's definitely going in the A tier. Timmy and Jimmy are cool characters because they're the opposite of each other. They're both ranged characters, yes, but Timmy shoots a bunch of fast projectiles that deal light damage. Jimmy, on the other hand, shoots a single slow projectile that deals greater damage. They also both literally say the exact same things. That cannot be a coincidence. Anyway, Timmy's gonna go in the A tier. He's really fun to use. And actually does a good job applying the dizzy effect, even though it's clearly an accident. Jimmy, however, yeah, you're not as good. You're going in the C tier. His projectile, while it does more damage than SpongeBob's, doesn't really make up for how slow it is. He also has like 0 dizzy effects on any of his attacks. Lastly, for the starting characters, we got, oh boy, Tack. This guy's moveset is just like his show. Trash! He's a close-up character and his attacks are slow and weak. The only good thing about his character is that he deals a decent amount of dizzy effect, but that doesn't stop him from being the worst character, F tier. Anyway, that's all for the starting characters. Let's actually start the game. So, the game starts with SpongeBob and Patrick talking to each other, and for some reason, one of SpongeBob's windows is straight up touching the ground. Apparently SpongeBob and Patrick are discussing the fact a new factory, get it? Fact? And factory?
Shut your
has randomly spawned in, and started giving out free toys because I still question how old the two even are. The person who wrote this game's dialogue definitely had way too many SpongeBob vitamins in the morning. Also, this game is straight up improv, because most of the items the characters in the game talk about aren't even shown. Some examples include the chute Patrick slid through, and the big toy SpongeBob keeps talking about. You can never see it, you just assume it's there. Now, while SpongeBob is looking at the toy, Patrick gets kidnapped by the wrong type of enemy in this world. That's the bear from Amity Park. Jeez, I
really hope somebody got
fired for that blunder. Then SpongeBob is introduced to the villain, who if you played either the console or GBA versions, you know who it is. SpongeBob immediately afterward runs into the Nicktoon characters, which includes the iconic characters like Tack. You know, Tack! Weirdly enough, I did watch Tack's show, mostly because I only watched Nicktoon all day, every day. Other people were watching Disney Channel and PBS Kids, but I stayed watching Nick. I have my priorities. According to Timmy, people have gone missing, and they came to SpongeBob to, I guess, bring everyone together. What are they like, the Avengers or something? What's even more confusing is the fact that they can breathe underwater. Yeah, you know, they can just breathe. No explanation is given, but I guess in this case they just breathe air. Now this game is split into separate worlds. I'm going to talk about 5 things. Music, gimmick, touch gimmick, I'll explain that later, enemies, including bosses, and overall thoughts. And then I'll talk about the rest of the world. I'll explain that later too. First we start with Bikini Bottom. This is essentially the tutorial world, and is the easiest. We're also forced to play as SpongeBob for this world. The game lets us play as 2 characters though, so I suggest picking Danny Phantom as your second character. Not a fan of the world's music, it just doesn't feel like SpongeBob, no? It arguably has one of the best gimmicks, but that's due to the fact that the game stops using gimmicks in their worlds for some reason. It's the only one, or 2, of the worlds that tries to use a gimmick. Not to mention that there are worlds that straight up don't have any. The world's gimmick is waterfalls, and I personally think this gimmick works pretty well. The waterfalls damage the player, and you have to wait till they stop to proceed. This forces you to dodge obstacles while fighting the enemies, and does a good job preventing things from becoming repetitive. Now, since this is a DS game, it means we gotta use the DS's touchscreen. Yay! I love being forced to use the touchscreen! Each world has essentially a minigame that requires the player to use a touchscreen. Now, I don't want to be rude, but this is easily the worst part of the game. They usually feel like a waste of time. Despite this, each world forces us to play one of these minigames 3 times! There are only 2 that I actually enjoyed. This world doesn't have one of those 2. This minigame forces us to turn a wheel to let the water fall. And we gotta stop the bridge right when the bridge reaches the spot we want it to. Else, we gotta do it over again. Isn't this fun? The 3rd time is a bit interesting though, creating a nice little puzzle. I can tolerate this one. Each world usually has 3 types of enemies, the most common being the weak teddy bears, the fast enemies, and the tanks. There are usually some exceptions. This world basically has all those. You got the weakest teddy bear in the game. They take 2 hits, unless you're playing as Timmy, but even then, he shoots so fast that they'll probably be dead before you know it. You got the snakes, and the tanky clams. The mid-boss of the game is a jellyfish, and it is pretty cool. Something the console version lacks is, you know, actual bosses. It also should be mentioned that after beating the boss, we receive a mech, which is super fun to use, even if you can cheese a few sections with it. Overall thoughts on the world? It's alright. It's a tutorial world, so don't really expect much. Anyway, after fighting a weird brick that shoots lasers, we free Patrick and find out the villain is Calamitous, which is one of the most underappreciated villains. And we move on to the driving section. Yeah, remember how I said this game has an identity crisis? Yep, it's because the game switches gameplay styles. Most of the worlds contain pretty similar driving sections, so I'll explain the main gist of it right here. Here, the mech we received earlier transforms into a vehicle, which is some next level transformership ride. The section is just like Mario Kart, but you know, less Mario Kart. It's just a standard driving section in a game. Avoid certain obstacles, in this case crates. The bullets you collected throughout the previous part of the world are used as your health, which really complements the beat 'em up section. It really just ties everything together. You don't want to run out of bullets. Hitting too many crates will cause you to run out of fuel, because apparently the car was running on nuts and bolts. And it makes sense, my car runs on Tic Tacs. There's also this temporary boost you can use that lets you bypass any crates. Once used up, it needs to recharge. It's kind of necessary in some sections where the crates are just, straight up impossible to dodge. Also, as a bonus, each driving section has portraits for the player to collect. These are portraits of other Nicktoons characters. They're either at the end of a ramp, or hidden inside a crate. Collecting all the portraits unlocks us something quite special. Side note, the first world's driving section has these major thin ramps on the side which aren't practical, so I'm wondering why they bothered to include them. These sections overall are a welcome addition to the game. Once done with the driving, we move on to the third gameplay section. The first-person shooter. Yeah, I'm not joking. This is the most fun part of the game, as the first-person shooter is considered the final boss of each world. Also, 2 mechs are present, which contradicts the continuity, since we only found the one, but it's most likely an excuse for multiplayer. Also, please don't shoot your teammate. Seriously, who wrote this? Now, I'm usually not a fan of first-person shooters, but this is a very unique one. And the main issue with the majority of first-person shooters is that they all feel like the exact same. Here we fight a giant mech version of SpongeBob. The bullets are still considered the health. They also give a bonus extra amount. You have 2 types of shots, a quick weak one and a slow heavy one. The heavy one allows for a greater chance of dizzy effect, which stuns the boss, letting you get some free attacks. I love every world's version of this boss section except for one. Each boss fight uses the world's gimmick. The fight against the SpongeBob mech has waterfalls that block our shots but multiply the opponent's shots. Off to the side of the level we can shoot these faucets until they become shut, which temporarily removes one side of the waterfalls. It's a relatively easy boss fight though. Once we defeat the boss, we can hear the best victory theme ever. We then receive a key, which we'll need to be collecting more of for later, and then we unlock Patrick. Patrick goes in an easy A tier, second best character at applying the dizzy effect. And now we move on to the next world, which is Poopanunu Village. And yes, that's the actual name, the show sucks! Well, I assume this is supposed to be the next world because Patrick shows up in the cutscene, but that might only be because from this point on, we are given the choice of what world to play next. Yeah, for some reason, you're allowed to freely choose which worlds to play, and which characters to unlock. Kinda like old Plants vs. Zombies 2? Oh wait, this game was made before PvZ2. So PvZ2 copied this game. PopCap and EA, you better give THQ and Natsume royalties right now. I said, right now! Also, SpongeBob and Patrick can now breathe outside of the water because nothing makes sense at this point. I'm not a huge fan of this world's music, it just sounds too bland. This world's gimmick is that we climb trees to go to a new section. Yeah, that's it. No dodging or anything, just a short climb. The boss sections will instead use the touch gimmick for their bosses. Oh yeah, speaking of the touch gimmick, it's actually one I enjoy. In fact, I think it's the best one. You slide your stylus back to aim an arrow at a target. Every time you miss, an enemy spawns. This is actually a good touchscreen implementation, as you have to watch for enemies too. This world replaces the tanky enemies with ranged ones instead, so watch out for projectiles. The mid-boss is also one of those clapping monkey toys. I argue that every mid-boss is well designed, but this one is very unique. The boss will camp on top of 2 trees. We have to attack the trees to knock him off. Pretty good stuff. Overall thoughts on this world are pretty good. I like the look of the world, and we can go outside and touch grass.
What the hell?
It's also more difficult, so prepare for a challenge. The driving section is pretty standard gameplay wise, except we're on water so it looks stunning. Now we reach the boss section. This is absolutely one of the hardest bosses in the game. First attack will be hitting the spin behind a bunch of trees. The player must time their shots to hit 3 hearts. Then you must hit 2 targets that are in between the trees. Once the trees are lower, attack will stop doing the spin and will shoot you, but you are also given the chance to attack him. He'll shoot 3 arrows at you. The arrows contain a gap between them, so you fit between them to dodge. But the less health the boss has, the closer the arrows come together, until it hits the point where you just gotta get out of the way. Not to mention that the trees come back. The player can prevent this by hitting targets way in the back, but that just means you have less of a chance to attack the actual boss. Challenging, but well made. Then we unlock El Tigre. From a Nicktoon that only had 1 season, but was still incredibly popular. Supuesto fue porque estaba en mexicano. He's also a close-up character and he's faster than Danny but weaker too. Let's go B tier. Next world is Amity Park. Wanted to mention this now, but the background at the top screen when playing the beat 'em up sections show you cool 3D visuals of toys being made as you go through the level. Crying right now. It's so beautiful, man. Tears of the Kingdom? Nah, man, we gotta go for Nicktoons Attack of the Toybots. The world's music is a sweet remix of the Danny Phantom theme. Just listen to it. Definitely better than the last 2 world themes. This is the last world to have a gimmick, and it's not a very good one, of course. But it's better than Pupanuna Village, I guess. The world contains these maze sections, where you climb down ladders and avoid steam. While these are more impactful than climbing a tree, it's still kinda pointless. For one, it's pretty short and only happens for about 2 or 3 times. Also, the steam that you're supposed to avoid is pretty weak, so you could easily just tank it. And also, I say maze while holding up air quotes, as the maze part is non-existent. The branching paths are just short dead ends, and they're so short that you could see where they lead right away. You have to be an idiot to take these paths. I would know, it's on the list. This world has the most annoying and difficult touch gimmick. You have to use a magnetic crane to grab these purple cubes. The timing on these minigames are stupid tight, but hey, at least like the first world, got an interesting little puzzle. For regular enemies, there isn't much to say. Except I guess the fast enemies are slightly more annoying than usual, being ballerinas. The mid-boss is probably the toughest mid-boss in the game, being this boxing bear that throws projectiles like tornadoes at you. Yeah, I recall losing to him a lot. Overall, the world is, again, decent. This may be a trend for most of these worlds, but any bad part of a world is usually countered and cancelled out by the good parts of the world. There's absolutely nothing special about the driving section in this world, except we're in the suburbs. Hey, look! It's a GTA 6 leak! Look at these graphics!
That one didn't age quite so well.
The boss in this world isn't the craziest boss, but it isn't the worst either. Sure, you're not allowed to affect the gimmick, but I overall like how the gimmick plays into the boss. The purple cubes will be on treadmills, and these block your shots, and the boss can throw them at you. So the boss at least has structure. We then unlock XJ9, or Jenny. I still can't believe Nick represents Jenny more often in games, but refuses to let her show come back. Her show is very, very good. Too bad the moveset sucks. For some reason her aim sucks, and will miss almost all of her attacks. She also biscuit slaps for some reason.
That's a thumbs up.
I'll place her in the D tier since her attacks are decently strong when they land. Oh yeah, and everyone is fascinated by the fact that she's a robot, leading to some cursed images. But like, you guys saw her before you were driving. She even made a comment about not having enough energy to move. You're all just processing the fact that she's a robot now? Not that it really matters. This plot point is never used later on. Missed potential. Now we move on to one of my favorite worlds. No pun intended. Fairy World. This world has the best theme. It's like a mix of rock, pop, and magic. And the melody is really good, even if it's apparently just a Macarena. I actually never knew this for a while. Yeah, there's a reason this is my outro, by the way. What? You didn't know that? Well, of course you didn't, because you didn't care. This world has no gimmick, and we'll never mention normal gameplay gimmicks from now on, so you can cross that off your list. This world literally has the easiest touchscreen mechanic. While I don't find it as annoying as Bikini Bottom or Amity Park, it's still not relatively good. This world has a pretty cool substitute for fast enemies being bouncy balls. These enemies spawn in groups but are very weak and take one hit to kill. Kinda like weaker versions of the Bikini Bottom bears. However, this is cool because it means Timmy Turner, the person who is connected to this world, is the perfect counter for them, as he shoots multiple weak shots that can take them out.
I'll take just one hit to get rid of. It's definitely better to use somebody like Manny as opposed to somebody with a ranged attack.
You don't want to be like this. This is disgusting. This is awful in every way. If I could kill it, I would. But I legally can't.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust this guy. The boss of this world is a wrestler, and he's pretty hard to dodge overall. Now we reach the driving section, or should I say flying, because we're in a plane. This looks amazing. Look at Fairy World, man. And the sky crates will move with balloons, which makes it much more interesting, so watch out. Also, this section definitely has the hardest to collect all the portraits. Now, sadly, I've been complimenting this world, but this is where things get kinda stale. The boss. I don't like the Timmy boss. The gimmick is so pointless, it doesn't feel like it has structure at all. You're supposed to knock the hammer onto the boss, but don't let them hit you. That sounds cool, but it's ultimately flawed. The hammers randomly roam the level, and when you do manage to get the hammer to hit the boss, it stuns them. But the hammer stays in the way, so you can't even shoot! Just ignore the game and try shooting the boss normally. It's not terrible or painful, but it's still the worst since the others had well-structured gimmicks. We then unlock Mr. Blink from Cat Scratch? This is the weirdest addition because this is a show that had one season, but unlike El Tigre, never really aired on Nicktoons. It's a really funny show though, and it only got cancelled because it wasn't as good as SpongeBob right away. Cause you know, SpongeBob standards. Or I guess Loud House standards? No wait, they turned that into live action. Cat Scratch was so short, this might be the only game a Cat Scratch character is in. Not counting Flash games. Don't quote me on that though. Mr. Blink is a pretty good ranged character. He's decently fast and does nice damage. He also has a really good charge attack, throwing cheese! If you haven't noticed, his whole moveset is throwing random crap. He lands a nice B tier. Now we have the last optional world, Retroville. This world has some epic music, man. This sounds like something straight out of Sonic Rush. This world has a pretty nice touch gimmick, where we have to sort colors. Not much else to say. I just like this minigame. This world buffs the teddy bears. This world also happens to contain the most annoying enemy, being these boxing guys that have a lot of health and run really fast at you. The mid-boss is a helicopter and flies above the player and throws tactical nuke incoming! Isn't my editing so? Overall, this is clearly meant to be the last optional world, as it contains some of the hardest enemies, and it's pretty difficult for that reason. Now, the driving section is the most unique one yet. The other worlds use a boost that lets you temporarily be immune to crates, but this world's driving section lets you wield a gun. I mean a blaster. These let you shoot crates instead. They also roll towards you in this one. Then we got the hardest boss section so far. This boss is going to give you some trouble. First of all, the boss does not hesitate to attack you. Secondly, the gimmick. There are blasters around the level. If any of those blasters receives a metal ball, then they'll start shooting in several directions, which can easily start racking up damage. You have to blast the metal out of the blasters to stop them, which means you gotta multitask here. Good luck, you'll need it. Then we unlock Zim. Yeah, Zim is a ranged character and is the best ranged character in the game. No competition. A tier. Well, there we go. We have obtained every key, so we head on to the final world. Sadly, there isn't much to say about this world, since it's really just an extension of Retroville. Same enemies and everything. However, there's no touchscreen gimmick, which is fine. 2 out of 5 is good enough. However, this world is more unique for these reasons. For one, there is no driving section, which makes sense. It's the final destination. And 2, we fight every first-person shooter boss up to this point, and the order we do supports my theory, except they have Danny before Tack. Either one works, just pick those before Fireworld and especially Retroville. Once we do the boss rush, we then fight Professor Calamitous himself, in arguably one of my favorite boss battles in video game history. He shoots projectiles that go all around the room, so you have to be extra careful when dodging. This boss also trolls, or I guess ruins the strategy that you've been probably doing this whole point. Remember when I said the boss can be stunned? Well, if you try to attack him while he's stunned, his brain will straight up attack you. Come on now, that's just like amazing. Oh wait, but there's no real gimmick. Huh. I guess I was wrong. This isn't one of the best bosses ever. Hey, why is the mech coming back together in the background? What? Oh my god! Yeah, that's right, this dude has an extra phase, and now the gimmick shows up. It's these lasers that stun you, making dodging extra hard. And listen to this music. Definitely the best way to end the game. Once defeated, it's revealed that Professor Calamitous was doing this all for a game show. Something that isn't a plot twist for the console and GBA port, but I think it's funnier in this case. Also, nice Crocker and Flad reference. We even get to see Calamitous' character sprite. I think he'd be a good character. He'd at least get a Z tier. He then gets destroyed by his robots, and a button appears to which Patrick hits. Which leads to the funny scene where they're all about to die and Jimmy's trying to get everyone home. But I can't take this scene seriously. Not only does this music play throughout the whole thing, they all have standard sprites, so they don't look very worried. And then we get a cameo from Plankton, which is in Cosmo and Wanda's fishbowl. Plankton needs to be in water. Now we may have finished the game, but there are some extra content. First of all, if you listen to the soundtrack, there may be this one cutscene theme that you may not recognize, but this theme is only in multiplayer. You see, multiplayer almost plays the exact same as the game, except there are no cutscenes when you play multiplayer. Except for the one where they use the keys to open the door. That's still present. But for some unknown, weird, freaking anomaly reason, they changed the music even though it's the same cutscene. It hurts my brain. It's just like,
What were they thinking?
there's also some extra characters that we can unlock. First of all, we can use 2 cheat codes to unlock 2 characters. Now, if you're wondering why I haven't placed anyone in the S tier, it's because Danny 2 and SpongeBob 2, yeah, those are those real names, are straight up broken. Danny 2 is just Danny on steroids, and SpongeBob 2 is a god at applying the dizzy effect. So they're both going in the S tier. No competition. It's like. Now, lastly, if you collected all the portraits I mentioned earlier, you will be given Grr. Yeah, that's right, another Invader Zimrat. Since he requires you to scavenge all the bonus content, he has to be a really good character, right? No. Just no. Yeah, sadly Grr isn't the best. His projectiles are below the average and often miss. He also has like the worst air attack. I really want to place him high, but he doesn't deserve to be higher than D tier. Then again, he does have a broken charge attack that like can chain within itself. It combos into itself. That's like a broken attack, but that's if you manage to hit it. Let's go with the C tier. This is the weirdest thing I've spent my time making. Anyway, that's Nicktoons Attack of the Toybots DS. An underrated gem in my humble opinion. And I am a little disappointed that the one unlockable character you get for essentially 100% of the game isn't really that good. But hey, still better than Tap.